Hello, this is Nicole with No, It's Crochet, and today we are going to be swatching up some KnitPicks Stroll. Now, if you're in the know, you know that the top that I have on is actually made with the Stroll, but in the painted version. So this is kind of the same yarn. It's just one is more of a hand-painted version, kind of a hand-dyed style, and one is the solid. So you can see how this works up in a crochet. I kind of like it, gotta say. Now, the stroll is actually pretty uncommon for crocheters to use. And I know this because I looked up the information on Ravelry to see the breakdown of crochet patterns versus knit patterns. For total projects using the stroll yarn in just the solid colors, this doesn't even count the hand painted colors, in just the solid colors, there are 78,000 projects in Ravelry. That's a lot of projects. This is a very, very, very popular yarn, but it's a popular yarn with knitters. And that's because only 2,000 of those 78,000 projects were crochet projects, including mine. So let's flip it over and talk about why that might be. Okay, so we are here with the KnitPicks Stroll. This is a fingering weight yarn. It comes with 231 yards, 50 grams per skein. And we are generally going to be talking about the solid colors, but it also does come in the hand-painted, I think it's called Stroll Effects. Yes, that's correct. Stroll Effects. So there are a lot more colorways that are more like almost a hand-dyed look. And so those are really pretty as well. But we will be working on and talking about these solids for today. This is a 75% fine superwash merino wool and a 25% nylon. Now, if you're not familiar, that combination, the 75-25, is often put in as a sock weight type yarn or a sock yarn, something that is designed to make socks. That doesn't mean that you can't use it for other things, but that is generally what that combination is for. Now, this is hand machine or machine wash cold and tumble dry low, and I can attest that I have done that, hand washed and tumble dried. So let's go ahead and set this guy over here, and we will do our swatch. Now, the hook size for this calls for anywhere from a 2.25 to a 3.5. So we're going to use a 3.0 today. And before we start the swatch, let's kind of take a look at our wraps per inch and see where this falls. It is supposed to be a fingering weight yarn. And as you can see, it definitely falls in that fingering weight. You could almost call it a sport weight, depending on what you wanted to kind of go with, but definitely not a DK. So fingering to sport weight on that is about accurate. Let's go ahead with our first single crochet swatch. On first feel, this yarn is actually quite soft. If you're familiar, I often have a hard time with wools. A lot of wools bother me. They are itchy and unpleasant, and I just, it kind of gives me almost acrylic vibes, to be honest. So I like a superwash merino because it is much softer than a traditional wool. And as I mentioned in the intro, there are a lot of projects using this yarn. There are over 78,000 projects on Ravelry using this yarn alone. But the vast majority of those projects are knit projects. And so it's kind of a questionable whether or not this makes for a really good crochet yarn. And to be honest, most crochet projects don't utilize fingering weight yarn. So that's kind of one of the variables right there. I tend to really like the fingering weight yarns. Again, I feel like I say this almost every video. I live in a warm, dry climate, so I want lightweight garments, and fingering weight is one of the ways that I can accomplish that. So it makes for a much nicer sort of summer garment or something in that kind of climate where maybe you want to layer and have something that's a little bit on the cooler side. This is a great option for that. And also, as you saw in the intro, I have crocheted actually two different full garments, full size tops using this yarn. So on this one, I can actually say whether or not I like it, how it wears, which I don't always get to do on these videos, but this one is definitely gives. This one I definitely get to give a little bit more insight on my opinion. Now, because this is a fingering weight yarn, of course our swatches are going to be a lot smaller. It's definitely an interesting kind of switch. I've been doing a lot of work with 4.5 to 5 millimeter hooks lately, so using a 3 millimeter is quite a different shift. I would love to know from you as you're kind of watching this, do you tend to avoid the fingering weight yarns, or do you really enjoy using fingering weight yarns? What are your thoughts? And, maybe share with me why. I mean, for some people, they like the bigger weight yarns because the projects work up so much faster, and wearing something that is light and thin is not a concern for them. That was fast. All right, we are done with our 4 rows. Believe it or not, it's such a tiny little swatch. I feel like I should do more, but that's all we do to test. And we'll snip that off and tie it off and start with our double crochet. I gotta wonder. Sometimes I think I probably miscount on these. it's hard to keep track. I have to use very specific methods to keep track of how many rows I am doing because, especially with single crochet, I have a really hard time going back and counting the number of rows. Can you relate, or is that like just? I don't feel like it's a beginner thing. I don't know. I just struggle with that. There we go. Snippy snip. And we have our two swatches. They are definitely there. So let's pull out our scorecard now, and we will do our review for the stroll. And I always have to write down the hook size I used because I forget. So I really need to put that on here somewhere. Okay, so the fiber blend with the superwash merino, that would put that as a luxury blend. Then the nylon is a synthetic, so I'm going to put that as a 4.5. The feel, it's actually very, very soft. It doesn't have a lot of that scratchiness that some of the less expensive wools do. And I can honestly say from wear, it wears very well. It does not have itchiness in the wear. It is definitely not a baby, like, you know, it's not what I think of when I think of baby blanket soft or, you know, really cloudy kind of fluffy soft, but it is definitely a pleasant softness. So I'm going to put that as a 4. Now, color range, on its own, the solids, there are 48 colors. 48 colors just in the solids alone. But when you add the effects, you get an additional 43 colors. So if I were just scoring the solids, it would be a 4. If I were scoring both, it would be a 5. So I'm going to put that as a 4.5. Splitting. I did get one split. I don't remember it splitting on the multiple projects that I've done with it, but I did get a split in there, so I cannot say it's flawless. I will put it in as a 4. Stitch definition. Okay, let's take a look at this bad boy. There is just the slightest bit of fuzz and halo on this, and that's definitely something to note. The stitch definition is still pretty darn crisp, although I would not say it is perfect. So we're going to give that a 4. Drape. This can be interesting since these are small swatches. I don't know if it's fair, but I am getting a lot of curl on this. And curl to me indicates that there's not a lot of really good drape. It is not really falling over. It's kind of staying mostly erect. I'm going to say let's give that a 3.5. Now, you certainly could get a looser drape, as usual, if you went up a hook size so your stitches were looser. Oh, I tied this off and I didn't get to frog it. Okay, ready? Here we go. Okay, yeah, I'm not getting any, snags or anything. There is just a slight pull on that, but no snag. So we're going to say Frogability is smooth. That would be a 4. Washability. Now, again, I have some experience on this. Machine wash, tumble dry, low. I have done both of these, and I've done it at least 3 or 4 times on several garments without it showing any issues. Now, I'll put up a review here that shows that this individual has some concerns with the longevity of this. I did not find that a problem. I'm going to go ahead and give this a we're going to give it a 4.5. Price. Okay, here again, the price for the solids is different than the price for the effects. And if we were going to judge it just on the solids alone, the price per yard is an extremely reasonable 2.7 cents. So that puts that into an affordable range, which is like really inexpensive for a superwash merino yarn. Now, if we look at the hand-dyed, like, it's not really hand-dyed, which is why I say that. It looks very much like it's hand-dyed, but it's not. That price range comes at 3.8 cents, which is still in the affordable range. So we're bordering kind of on the affordable, almost ultra budget. We're going to leave it at a 4 for affordable, but that's for both. I mean, they're both very affordable, which is amazing. Now for bonuses, I gotta say, this yarn is a joy to work with. I really, really enjoy the yarn. It's one of the few merino wools, one of the few wools that I can use that it doesn't give me that itchy scratchy after. And part of that might be because it's a lightweight. But just because I can give it some testimony, I'm going to give it an extra point here to say this is a really, really nice yarn. All right, let's do the math. So our final score for the KnitPicks We Crochet Stroll is 4.2. That puts that into that officially one of Farah's favorites category. So anything that's a 4.0 from now on, anything that's a 4.0 is definitely getting added to the Farah's favorites. This is a yarn that I would happily buy again and use again, and I feel like it just has that great combination of ability to be worn without too much worry and concern, and yet it comes in so many beautiful, stunning colors. Let me know what you think. Are you going to be picking some of this up? I definitely think it's worth it. And Farah, frog us out of here.